Morning, this is Sage Wanderer, and today we are discussing a very serious topic. Do you have the guts for war? So let's put this out there right now. If you're easily offended, if you're fearful at all, if you have any kind of PTSD issues from hearing about violent things, you need to turn this video off right now, because we're going to talk about real violence, real war, and what that looks like. So I'd like to start this out by saying I am not a combat veteran, and I have not engaged in war. But I grew up with the greatest generation, and for whatever reason, many of them decided to alleviate their burdens at times by sharing with me some of the gritty details of what war is actually like. I like to also say that we've got a lot of Iraq and Afghanistan combat veterans who have faced war. Each war is different from the other. Most of the combat going on in Iraq and Afghanistan have been long-range gunfights. There's not a whole lot of up-close and dirty fighting going on. There were some in places like Fallujah, door-to-door, close-quarter combat, and those men were trained for that specific purpose and sent in there to do that. If you're talking about war in America, I think it's going to look very different, because I believe that everyone will be very much aware. They won't be living like life is normal and have war fall on them unexpectedly, which is kind of what happened to the people in Iraq and in Afghanistan. They'd just be sitting around eating dinner when suddenly the Marines would kick the door in. And I don't know that that kind of surprise attack is possible in an American Civil War. I think that there will be a lot of long-range gunfighting. There's going to be a lot of intermediate range gunfighting, but there's going to be a lot of up-close, in-your-face, clearing people out of your front door who are trying to kill you. I think the kind of weaponry that will be used will be varied. You know, people say there's a lot of guns in America, but when you look at the statistics, it ranges from one gun for every 800 people in the heaviest armed states to one gun in every 6,000 people in the lightest armed states. So there really isn't as many guns as you think. There's a lot more people than there are guns. And the guns that are out there don't have a lot of ammo. Not everybody stockpiles thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds of ammunition. So these guns will eventually run dry. Do you have the guts for war? Are you a video gamer? You think that qualifies you? Your fake life? How many times do you die for every guy you kill? What is your kill-death ratio? Your tactics are all screwed up, because trust me, they're barely above 1. That means you kill one guy and someone else kills you. That is not acceptable in a real-world situation. Do you think you're qualified because you can use a firearm? If you think that, go away from your paper punching for a minute and go to an IDPA or a 3-gun match. Forget about IPSC. None of that stuff is realistic. Go to an IDPA match or a 3-gun match and see how well you do under pressure. You know, the pressure of being watched while you're doing it is 1/100th of the pressure you will feel when someone is shooting at you and your life is in danger. So I used to shoot IDPA in 3-gun matches, and I had a lot of guys that would beat me by 100th or 1/10 of a second, and they would claim that because they were faster, that they were more qualified to survive a lethal encounter. But I have an argument against that. Knowing how to use a gun and being a warrior are not the same thing. Just because you can punch holes in paper doesn't mean you can punch holes in people. First of all, people move and people shoot back at you. So engage in the more realistic IDPA. But that can only take you so far. Because the question you have to ask yourself is, who are you when the shit hits the fan? Who are you when emergencies arrive? Have you ever pulled a drowning child out of the water, for instance? Have you ever been the first responder on a bloody car accident? How do you respond when someone gets hurt or injured? How have you responded when you've been hurt or injured? I come from a long line of warriors. I was raised with the warrior creed. I have it in my blood. I can tell you that I have had my leg nearly severed off in an accident, and I calmly drove myself to the emergency room because the people around me were losing their shit, and I had to do it myself. I have nearly cut my finger off, and taped it up with duct tape and just continued until the job I was doing, which was rewiring a house, a mobile home, to the pole. And when it was done, then I went in and got my 15 stitches in my finger. So how do you handle pain? How do you handle lack of sleep? But most importantly, you have to ask yourself, have you ever killed? Now, I grew up killing. My first thing I killed was a fish. Never felt much when I killed a fish. Maybe it's because I was so young when I started fishing. Blood and guts from a fish, it never bothered me, even when they get really big. The first time I killed a mammal, it was a silver gray squirrel down in southern Oregon. I felt really, really bad. Of course, I was only about 13, but I felt really, really bad. When I first killed my first white-tailed deer, I wept. I felt horrible. And but I did the job, and I collected the meat, and I fed my family. I have been bathed head to toe in the blood of a mammal. And when you gut and skin a deer, there's a lot of blood, and it gets all over you. I have seen death look me in the eye. I have taken the life of an animal while it looked at me in the eye. Could you do that to a human being? I don't think any of us really know till we get there. I assumed that I could if it was them against me. What you got to ask yourself, because, guns are insulated. You're shooting somebody from far away. It's kind of like hitting a target. You know that you're shooting a human being, but at the same time, does it really register? But the big question you got to ask yourself, if you're ready for this kind of civil war, is, are you able to take a piece of steel like this and put it into another human being? Are you able to see their bowels spill out on the ground? Unlike a movie, when you kill someone or you hurt someone, they don't just fall down and go to sleep. They grab at their guts and try to put them back in. They look at your eye and they scream, "Why did you do this to me? You stabbed me, you stabbed me, you stabbed me. Oh my God, you stabbed me. Mama, mama, mama." Are you ready for that? I'm not even sure that I am. Anybody that tries to tell you that war is easy is out of their mind. They haven't got a clue. Anybody can die for their cause. Really, dying's the easy part. They're the lucky ones, in a lot of ways. It's the ones that do the killing that got to live with that. That's the hard part. Are you up to the task? I'm bringing this frank discussion because I don't want war. I don't want to be a warrior. See this gray in my beard? I thought I made it my whole life to my rocking chair. But here I am facing what could potentially be a civil war in our country. A lot of armchair warriors talking big. A lot of weekend warriors talking big. I have a question for you, weekend warriors. You ever opened up the guts of a mammal? You ever killed an animal and looked him square in the eye when you did it? It'll change you forever, and I can't imagine what that's like doing that to a human being. This is real frank talk because this is real serious business. I don't want it. Do you want it? I don't want it. Nothing you're doing is pissing me off bad enough to make me want it. Will I engage in war if forced into a corner? Yeah, and I always have been that way. I'm not afraid to fight. The idea is not to give your life for your country. The idea is to make that other son of a bitch give his life for his country. George S. Patton said that, a man that knew a lot about war. So do you have the guts for war? I hope none of us honestly do when it comes to civil war, and I hope if we get invaded that we all find within ourselves the inner fortitude to stand up against an enemy. But if you want to start a war over ideology, if you want to start a war over politics, man, please think twice about it. Because it's real, it's stinky, it's self-destructive, and even if you win, you lose. There are no winners in war, just survivors.